Oh, did you click already?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of It's Time to Toss the Dice. Uh, we're nearing the end of The Eye of the World. We're going to be going through chapters 34 to chapter 45 today. We will not be discussing the Amazon series because they don't have one really that correlates with this section of the book for the most part. So we will discuss the Amazon series episode 4 next time.
Is it episode? Well, I guess we'll talk about
4 and 5.
and 6 and 7,
We can do
because
that.
I guess it's all the way up to Feldar, and I think Feldar is just episode 8, right?
Okay, we can do that.
I think. I don't remember, but I think.
Okay.
So we're starting with where we left off, which is episode 34,
Chapter
and
34.
it's an episode, right? Right. Um, and actually, this is just continuing on. The boys are still heading towards Camelin.
Yep.
Um,
The boys are still heading towards Camelin,
they
Egwene,
start to
and
see some more
Perrin.
Queensguard.
Hmm.
People are starting to talk about Margaze and Elida and Elaine and Gowan and all sorts of things. The closer they get to Camelin,
Hmm.
Matt is getting sicker progressively,
Yes.
and the boys are still having nightmares.
Still no Tom.
Uh, hmm?
Still no Tom. The boys are by
Yeah,
themselves.
still no Tom. Rand is hopeful, thinks that he's alive. Matt, significantly less. So, um, yeah, so they arrive in Camelin and they go straight for the Queen's Blessing where Tom told them to go. And they get there and they're like, Tom sent us. And Basil Gill's kind of like, you don't say. But he does give them food and rooms, and he doesn't actually charge them because any friend of Tom's is a friend of his, which is great because they're kind of broke.
Oh, they're beyond kind of broke there.
um,
I don't think they have 2 coppers they could rub together at this point.
Probably not. They do learn through Basil Gill about some potential history that existed at one point in time between Tom and Morgaze, the queen, who used to be a court bard in Camelin.
Hmm.
So that's a story. There are White Cloaks in the city who are searching for 2 people from the 2 rivers. Um, Rand thinks that it's them. Obviously, we know that it's not. It's Perrin and Egwene.
Right.
I think, yeah. Matt is mostly staying in bed at this point. Camelin is sort of a melting pot of ethnicities. Yeah,
Yep. A lot of refugees at this point in Camelin.
lots of refugees. But it's not just refugees. I actually thought this was interesting. There's a lot of people who have traveled to Camelin just to see Logain
Hmm.
as well.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, that's right. Logain. They're parading
mm-hmm,
Logain through the streets of Camelin.
through the city because Andor helped capture him.
Hmm.
And I find it interesting that so many people are traveling to the city to the point where it's nearly busting at the seams, and it's a big city,
Right.
just to see a false dragon.
Yep. One of the
So
largest cities
Logain's
in the
got,
world.
hmm?
One of the largest cities in the world, and they can't find places for everybody.
Right, because of Logain. So that's who's reportedly a false dragon. So it's a lot to think about with somebody who's not even the real Dragon Reborn creating this much of a fuss.
But now, do you think, and obviously this is just theory, but do you think that a lot of those people would be there not because they think it's a false dragon, but because they think the White Tower has the real dragon?
I don't know.
Because I mean, Logain conquered a lot of land
He
under
did.
under the name of the Dragon Reborn.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of people that followed him. He had
Hmm.
an army behind him. So, with somebody with that much power and that much authority, that a lot of these people, especially from outside land, the stories they hear that, he conquered Gelden. Like a
Yeah.
lot of the stories that they hear, this Loghain, who claims to be the dragon, conquered the country of Gelden, and it's under his rule. Like, they probably think that this is the freaking dragon. The dragon has been reborn. So
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. Or it could be, do we know if um is Logain, does he have any talents or anything that we know of?
no, I don't believe he does.
Okay, I wasn't sure. So yeah, I don't know, but it's kind of a big deal. This false dragon having been caught by Aes Sedai, and with the help of Camelin and Andor, um, being paraded through the city
In a cage.
in a cage. Yes. So on the day that he is to be paraded through the city, oh, something to note: when he's in the city, Rand decides that it's a good idea to cover up the heron on his sword so that nobody can see it, and he buys a red cloth,
Yeah, red
I guess.
sash.
And
Red
he
sash.
yes, and he chooses red because it's the cheaper option of the two. Come to find out that those who have wrapped their swords in, or daggers or whatever, in red are in favor of the queen, and those who have bought white ones and wrapped them in white are not. And it makes it a little bit, I'm not sure that it makes his life any easier than if he had been walking around with a heron marked blade, because the vast majority of the people in the city are wearing white. So he's made himself quite unpopular with this choice.
And I don't recall why there was so much white. Why so many people were against Morghese.
Do we now? I did reread this
Hmm.
section of the books, and there was no mention of a certain someone in the palace. Um, but do you think he could be around already?
I don't think so.
Because that would be a good reason if
That that
Morghese's decision making was already kind of crumbling a little bit.
that that would make sense, but no, I don't think so. I think that we would have heard something because, well, we can discuss that here in a little bit when we get to that part of the story, because we get
Okay.
to that part, or the part
Yes.
I'm thinking about in these
Yeah.
chapters. So
Yeah. So on the day that Logain is to come through the city, Rand leaves the inn, the Queen's Blessing. Uh, Matt stays behind.
Matt's obviously still in bed. Yeah.
He is in bed. He is not getting up. He is angry at the world for some reason. Um,
I mean,
and
we know the reason, like the
yes, it's
dagger's
the dagger.
poisoning his mind. Yeah.
Yep, the dagger is poisoning his mind. He thinks Loyal. Oh, we meet Loyal.
We do meet Loyal.
I forgot. So the day that they arrive at the inn,
Hmm.
Rand asks for a quiet place to go and sort of hide because they're still in hiding. And Basil Gill has a library. He
Hmm.
goes to the library, and he meets Loyal, who is
Who
an Ogier,
who he thinks is a Trolloc at first.
who he thinks is a Trolloc at first. And Matt sort of never grows out of thinking he's a Trolloc, so he doesn't want to hear anything about Loyal. um, but Rand also, upon meeting Loyal, tells him the truth. He tells him the whole story, the true story. Something about Loyal just sort of made him think this wasn't a creature, a person, a ogier that you lie to. And when he finishes, Loyal looks at him and says one word: ta'veren.
Yep.
Yep. And he explains ta'veren to, I think this is the first time they've heard it.
It is. It is.
Yes. And he explains ta'veren, what a ta'veren is to Rand, and it's basically somebody who either pulls on the pattern except more than other people, or somebody who the pattern
weaves itself around.
weaves itself around, or has predetermined their
Yeah,
fate in
instead
a
of
way.
just being a spoke in the wheel, there's someone that the wheel is formed and molded around.
Yep.
So their
Um,
thread in the pattern is much more significant than other people's, has much more importance.
yes. And because of this, Loyal asks Rand if he can travel with them, because when in your life are you going to get to travel with a real, breathing, live ta'veren?
Hmm.
And the answer to that is normally never. So,
I believe, and I could be mistaken, but I believe Loyal even questions Rand's
he does.
heritage.
He actually he actually makes comments, and Rand kind of looks at him like he has no idea what he's talking about. And I don't remember exactly what the comments were. Um, but eventually Rand's kind of like, I don't understand. He's like, well, you're an Aielman, of course. And Rand's like, no. I don't understand. Um, and explains that he's not Aiel, and of course Loyal is very confused. Um, but he tells him he's
would
from the
have
Two
had to
Rivers.
would have had to done with him carrying the sword.
I honestly don't remember.
I don't recall it. I remember him mentioning it to Rand, but I don't remember the context in which he mentioned it.
He was talking about Avendasora.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would
Yep,
make sense. Yep.
yep. He was talking about Avendasora. Like Rand was supposed to know
Know
what
what?
Avendasora
Yeah, that
was.
would be something important to Rand.
Yes, if he was in fact Aiel.
Right.
And Rand's like, I don't understand what this is. Isn't it just a tree? And Loyal's like, no, dude. Yeah. So it was talking about Avendasora. Um, yeah. So we'll move forward back to the day that Logain arrives in the city. Rand is apparently late to the party and can't find a good spot to watch the procession. So he climbs up a hill
Hmm.
that's not meant to be climbed,
Hmm.
and climbs up a wall also that's
That's not
not meant to
meant
be
to be climbed.
climbed, and scrapes up his hands pretty good, scrapes up his knees and his feet pretty good, and but he gets to the top and plops down on top of this wall, without paying any attention to what's behind him, which is
Hmm.
probably not a very good idea.
How
He
would you
watches.
miss it though? Like even if you're
I
not looking
don't
for it.
know. I don't know how you would miss what's on the other side of the wall. I don't know. So he watches the procession, and at this point, I think we're in chapter. We skipped a little bit. I think we're in chapter 39. We've got to go back and talk about
Right,
37
right,
and 38 because that's other characters.
right.
Um,
We'll take this one storyline at a time.
yes. So, uh, I don't remember what it is, but um, Rand, when Logain is passing by, Rand sort of leans and kind of almost loses his balance, trying to see Logain like go into the castle, the palace, and Logain laughs like maniacally, which is very strange. We don't know why. Um, I'm trying to see. I don't remember, but he says something, and somebody, magical voice from a tree above him, responds, and he ends up being so startled that he falls off the wall backwards
Backwards, not
into
forwards.
into the other side of it.
Yeah, into a garden.
Um, yes, hits his head, puts a nice gash in it, and presumably passes out at least for a brief period of time. When he comes to, he vaguely realizes that there's actually green grass around him, which is very strange. And
Because it's wintertime.
yeah, well, it's supposed to be spring, but
It,
like
it's
the
it's
world is literally dying around them. So
almost
grass is
infinite
weird.
winter. Yeah.
Yeah. And out of the tree that he was sitting under comes a young lady
Mm-hmm.
and a young gentleman who are dressed exceptionally well.
Very, very fine clothing.
Yes, and have airs about them that are quite. I know that I'm better than you.
Superior, yes.
Yes, and we come to find out that it is Elaine Tricand and Gawain Tricand, the daughter heir of Andor, and her first prince of the sword, her brother.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The two children of Queen Morghese.
yes, the two. Well, two of
Nope, the two
the
children.
two children. Yes, of Queen Morghese. Elaine decides that Rand is her guest. She bandages his head. She tells him he's got to stay there because if he tries to stand up, he's going to make it worse. And Gowan's sitting there like, Elaine, this is a bad idea.
This dude's bloodied up, his hands are
Yeah,
cut up, his knees are cut up, his bleeding out the head, he's carrying a sword, he's in our garden.
yeah.
Because he didn't realize there was a palace behind the wall he was sitting on
For some
somehow.
reason, didn't notice the palace. Um, and while they're talking and trying to decide what to do with him and going to lead him out a back gate, and Rand sitting here, nope, I'm just going to climb back over the wall, just pretend I wasn't here. I'm going to go now. um, Galad shows up, who
Mhm.
is Elaine and Gowan's half brother uh, from their mother's former husband,
Mhm.
who's died.
Yes.
He died, right? Yes. And Galad is the type of person who always does the correct thing,
Yes.
even if that correct thing is questionable. So they have a brief exchange. Galad runs off and tells everybody there's a weird guy in our garden who's not supposed to be there.
Stranger danger, stranger danger.
Exactly. Yep. And
Never mind that Rand is essentially a teenager that fell off a wall. He wasn't trying to break into the palace, but
but Galad doesn't know
he's
that.
not supposed to be there. He's there. He's not supposed to be, so Galad has to let
Yes.
everybody know.
Everybody.
Intruder alert.
So they don't make it to the back exit from the garden to get Rand out of there before a character that we will meet repeatedly, another character that we'll meet repeatedly over and over again, shows up by the name of Talonvor.
Mhm.
I like Talonvor.
Mhm.
He's a little, um,
Extreme.
yes, but I like him. And he escorts them to Queen Morghese, who has decided that she wants to meet this intruder.
Yes. Why
Um,
is he here?
yeah. So they show up in the presence of the queen, and Rand does his best to mimic everybody and bow and do all the things. And it turns out she ends up asking him some questions and says, you know what, he sounds like he's from the Two Rivers. We're just gonna let him go.
Mhm.
Now this is where the benefit of having the red sash comes in,
I
because
was gonna say at this point, I
Elaine and Gowan
bet he's happy to have that red sash as opposed to the white one.
use the excuse that he must be in support of Morghese because he's wearing the red sash, and Morghese just kind of looks at her daughter like, "You idiot! We haven't collected taxes from these people in 20 generations, and they barely recognize us as like any amount of authority.
Right.
This is not a reason to trust this guy." But anyway, so he answers some questions, and Morghese decides to let him go, but not before we get a foretelling from Elida. Elida is Morghese's Aes Sedai advisor, and she does have a talent. She is gifted with foretelling.
And she is a red.
Yes, she is a red. Um, do we want to say what the foretelling is? I've got it.
Go for it.
Sure. So Elida says that the Dark One stirs in Shale Ghul. The shadow lies across the pattern. The future is balanced on the point of a pin. This one is dangerous, meaning Rand
Rand.
specifically.
Right.
This I foretell and swear under the light that I can say no clearer. From this day, Andor marches toward pain and division. The shadow has yet to darken to its blackest, and I cannot see the light, or I cannot see if the light will come after. Where the world has wept one tear, it will weep thousands. This I foretell. And then to Rand, specifically, barely audible, nobody else can hear it. Um, this too I foretell. Pain and division come to the whole world, and this man stands at the heart of it. I obey the queen and I speak it clearly. Yeah.
Couldn't just let him go.
Elida does not want to let him go. She wants to toss him in a dungeon. He has piqued her interest. That's not a good thing.
No, it's not.
Not a good thing.
Not by any stretch of the imagination.
Yes, but he does get let go. Talon Vor and Elaine and Gowan, excuse me, escort him out, and they go back to. I think he goes back to the Queen's Blessing.
He does.
Yep.
A little worse for the wear.
Yep. I think
if only he could have noticed the mountainous palace behind the wall.
Maybe he would have been more careful to not fall off of it on the inside.
Or maybe decide, maybe I don't want to sit on this wall.
Yeah, but honestly, this is kind of a point where we really get some information about our characters beyond what we've learned from Moiraine and Lan, specifically about Rand and his importance to the rest of the series. This is the first time we really get any sort of indication that, well, in their dreams, of course, that he's very important.
Well, from him, or I'm sorry, from Elida and from Min both.
Yes.
Yep. Min's the first one to kind of start stirring around that maybe there's something to him, specifically him.
Right. Yeah. And this just sort of leads more towards a confirmation of it being Rand specifically who is the most important
Yes.
of the group. To not spoil anything.
Right.
Do you want to switch? I think the next important thing is when they all get together. So let's go switch to Nynaeve, Moiraine, and Lan.
Nynaeve, Moiraine, and Lan. Yep.
Yep. They have switched gears. They're now headed towards Perrin, who also had a coin and he just lost it. He was attacked, or they were attacked, and he was captured by White Cloaks.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably, they took his coin.
Mm-hmm.
So they head for them. They find them and make a plan to rescue them.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, Perrin and Egwene are tied up in a tent that belongs to White Cloaks. They are actually offered a chance to escape by Child Bayar, I believe. And Perrin doesn't take it because he thinks that would just confirm
that they're dark friends.
Bayar's suspicion that he is actually a dark friend.
Mm-hmm.
Because
like we discussed last time, there is no, if you're taken and questioned by the White Cloaks, there is no innocence.
Yes. Bayar sort of pitches it like, you're slowing us down. Why don't you just leave? But Perrin realizes that it's really you're slowing us down. If you free yourself, I have an excuse to kill you.
Mm-hmm. You're escaping the Children of the Light. You have something to hide. You have to be a dark friend. You're guilty. We execute you. We can leave your body here.
Yep. So during this, he does get a message from Dapple, the wolf, saying that help is coming. and he's not really sure what that means, but we know that it means Lan, Nynaeve, and Moraine. Nynaeve goes in and she cuts horse lines so that the horses will run. She finds Bella, which is amazing. And they come in and they rescue them
Hmm.
from the White Cloaks. And I believe that Perrin and Lan have a bit of a discussion about wolves.
Hmm.
And I don't think that Lan actually tells Perrin what he is, but that he understands that he's seen it before. He knows who Elias is.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
Elias was a warder.
yes. And obviously Moraine finds out because he told Lan, right?
Right, right, right. If one knows, they both know.
Yep. So I believe Moraine tells him that he's a wolf brother.
Hmm.
That it's something that she's heard, that it doesn't have anything to do with the one power,
Hmm.
and that there's nothing that anybody could have done to stop it, but it doesn't seem to bother her. So, or at least not much. She just kind of, I think she actually makes a comment that there was nothing in the prophecies about this. So maybe her mind is thinking, well, maybe Perrin's not the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, it doesn't really seem to bother her. So Perrin's like, okay, he doesn't love it, but
And I believe Perrin starts to notice that his senses do seem to be
mhm.
heightened.
Yeah. Actually, there's a number of times in the passage during their escape, he wraps his stuff up in Child Byar's cloak. And there's a number of times where it's commented that he thinks that he can smell Child Byar on it.
Hmm.
So his sense of smell is definitely starting to
Yeah,
pick
yeah,
up.
he's starting to notice that his senses are heightened to that beyond of what a normal human's is. His
Yep.
hearing, his sight, his obviously his sense of smell, all that.
Yeah. And he still, like I said, he still doesn't love the idea of what's happening to him, but the sort of reassurance that he gets from Moraine gives him a little bit of relief.
A little
Like,
bit of peace of mind. Okay,
yeah,
I'm not a male channeler. The world's not going to
I'm
be
not going
after
crazy.
me. Yeah, I'm not going to
Yeah,
go mad and kill my family
exactly. Yep.
and my imaginary wife. And
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
So I don't think we actually get any story of this, but they obviously head to Camelin and they meet up with Rand
Hmm.
and Mat. Well, Rand first, because Mat's still up in his room
Hmm.
in bed, being miserable Dagger Mat.
Yeah.
And
Dagger Mat is not a fun mat.
Dagger Mat's not a fun Mat. Rand makes a after hugs are exchanged and all that sort of thing. Rand makes a comment that Mat is sick, and of course Nynaeve freaks out. And Moraine sends them up. She does a little Aes Sedai channeling to get rid of the rats around the inn. And she heads up and tells everybody to get away from Mat and not to go near him because she can sense the evil that's coming off of Mat. And she realizes, she finds the dagger, and she does some work to reverse the dagger's taint in Mat and slow its continued progression.
Yeah,
But
she can't stop it. Like she's not a yellow. She's not versed in that kind of healing, but she does enough to keep him alive and to slow the
mhm,
progression that the dagger takes on its poisoning and
yeah. And she does let them know that Mat still has the dagger and that he's not going to be able to get rid of it
yep, he can't get rid of it. Like
unless he goes to Tar Valon and multiple Aes Sedai um,
yeah, she
with
basically said nobody else touched the dagger, but Matt has to keep it. Like if we
yep.
separate him from it, it will kill him.
And the only way that it can be separated is in Tar Valon
Yep,
with a
gotta go,
circle of sisters.
gotta go to Tar Valon.
Yep. This is where they've all met in the library. Rand introduces everybody to Loyal.
Not the
Um,
not a Trolloc.
who's not a dog. Matt goes, I kind of remember seeing you before, but not really. Matt can't remember much of anything after Whitebridge.
Yep.
And
So this is still Dagger Matt, but you see a little bit of the life that was in him before the dagger. You
a
see a
little bit, yeah.
little bit of that. I mean, a very, very minuscule amount, but you see a little bit. It's not all the end is nigh. Still
Yes.
mostly the end is nigh, but not entirely the
He's
end
a
is
little
nigh.
better.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
He went from like 100 to 99. So,
yeah. So, I don't remember exactly what Maureen says, but Loyal's like, hold up a second. I have to tell y'all a story. And Maureen's like, no, knowing Ogier, she's aware. She's like, okay, but be brief.
yes. Because when Ogier
Which is,
tell a story, they mean they are actually going to tell a story.
yeah.
Grab a drink, sit down, get comfortable. You're not going anywhere for a while. They
Mm-hmm.
do not skimp on the details.
Go
Will
back
read
500 years.
they will read you a 700-page dissertation, and that is a short story to them. Like
Yes.
Ogier lived for
Very long time.
much longer than humans do. So seeing humans run around at the rapid pace that they do, like makes the Ogier are slow and methodical because they have a lot more time that they can
Do
spend
we
on
know how
things.
old they get?
I think it might be mentioned when he talks about one of the elders, because I believe Loyal's in his 70s or something like that,
He's
and
90.
he's considered young, like barely old enough to leave the steading.
Yeah.
So I believe he said something. I can't remember the age, but I believe he did say something about how old one of the elders were.
I'm just curious how their lifespan stacks up against some folks we'll meet later, like the kin.
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well.
I'm very curious.
Some of the wise
We'll have to
ones.
pin that for later. Um, so
Say not just the kin, some of the wise ones.
yes, wise ones as well. Basically, anybody who's not an Aes Sedai and done a stupid thing,
Yeah.
uh, which we'll get into way later. So Loyal tells the story that happened about 20 years ago during the Aiel War, about how he heard, or some Ogier heard, and they passed the story along, that Sightblinder, the name that the Aiel use, is going to try to use the Eye of the World to break the wheel. And at that point, Rand and Matt, was it Rand and Matt who heard that story? No, Perrin stops and goes, wait a second. I've also heard this story from the Tinkers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it came up. It came up because they were talking about how Baalzamon said it in their dreams,
Mm-hmm.
that he was going to use the Eye of the World to break the wheel and the pattern. And Moiraine's sitting here like, okay, so we've got the same story from three different sources and three different time frames from three different places. I think we should go to the Eye of the World.
Mm-hmm.
And skip Tar Valon because that was where they were going to go.
Right. They were going to go to Tar Valon. Yep.
So they start making a plan to go to Faldara. Faldara is a very long way away from Caemlyn. It's not something you can just hop on a horse and scuttle to in a couple of days.
Yeah, Faldara is essentially the end of the world. I mean, until you get to the Blight. Like, you can't go any further north without being in the Blight.
North or east.
Right.
It's as far north and east as you can go without hitting the Waste or the Blight. And she realizes that the pattern, presumably, has put all of them in this room for a reason, including Loyal, who's
Mm-hmm.
already decided that he's going to travel with them because ta'veren.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, he's also confirmed that Matt and Perrin are ta'veren as well at this point. So he's like a giddy little kid in a candy
Yes.
shop.
I believe he's already
Until,
started talking about the book he's going to write.
until Moiraine goes, and the pattern has given us an Ogier who can lead us through the ways. The ways are very dangerous.
The ways are
Loyal
very
doesn't want to
dangerous.
go.
No.
In fact, Loyal is officially an all Ogier, and all men, in fact, are all officially banned from going into the ways per the Elder Council of the Ogier, who said that nobody's allowed to go in there. It was created by male channelers as a gift to the Ogier. However, it was created after um, Sidar or Sidene was tainted, so the ways has slowly become corrupt because of the way that it was made. You still there?
Yeah, I thought it was
Okay.
created by the Ogier,
Mm-mm.
which is why, because Moraine was extremely glad that Loyal was going to be with them because all the writing and the ways was in
It's in Ogier.
Ogier,
Hmm.
but ancient Ogier, not. I mean,
Yes.
even you would have to be a very well versed
And Loyal
in
is.
the ancient language in order to decipher it. Because even Loyal has struggles with some of them. Like it takes him quite a while to decipher what some of the guiding, what are they called, guiding stones, guiding
Yeah.
posts or
Guiding
something like,
stones.
yeah, what they say, because
Um,
they
or just
give you
guidings, I think.
directions. It might be just guidings.
So Loyal actually tells the story that I guess you're not remembering. The Ogier that had found Steading um, provided sanctuary to male channelers during the breaking so that they wouldn't go crazy. And eventually, they did all leave and they all went crazy and died, right? Because they can't touch the source in a setting. So it was a relief
It
from what had happened.
prolonged the madness.
Yes, and as a thank you to the Ogier for providing them um, sanctuary when the rest of the world hated them, they made the ways for the Ogier and gave the Ogier talismans to be able to make more way gates.
Okay.
Yep. So that the Ogier could travel very quickly between their steading and the places that they were working where there were groves and cities without having to traverse through the world of men.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. But either way,
I
Loyal doesn't
think
want to go in there.
I think I do vaguely remember
Yep.
him talking about the talismans that they had that they could use to expand the ways.
Mhm. So Loyal doesn't want to go in there because it has been corrupted because it was made with Sidene.
He doesn't want to go in there because Loyal is he's essentially a teenager himself and 90 years old. He's essentially a teenager
And
and
he's kind of a chicken.
it's forbidden,
Yes.
like it's forbidden to go into the ways. So he does
Yes.
not want to go into the ways because it is forbidden that he do so.
Well, yeah, and he knows what's waiting for him in there.
He does, but I think he would have been much less um opposed to going if he wasn't forbidden. Like even knowing what was in there.
I don't
I
think
think
so. Because
I
he
think
actually makes comments
he
about
still would
how
have been a little
he's,
apprehensive about it, but I
yeah.
think it was more him breaking the rules that had him scared than what was in the ways.
I don't
The,
know though, because Lan actually kind of made a comment that sort of made him seem like it was kind of like, it's the ways, whatever. And Loyal responded like you wouldn't be saying that if you had seen people come out of the ways.
right. And again, I think
Because he said
that's
he has seen an ogre come out and
right.
not be the same.
Essentially mindless drone.
Yeah. Yep. Uncurable, by the
Mhm.
way.
Yep.
So he is a little bit scared just because he knows there's scary things in there. But yes, I think you are right. Part of that is because he is still a teenager for all intents and purposes.
Mhm.
Um, and the Council of Elders says nope.
Mhm.
For good reason.
Yeah.
Yep. But anyways, they convince him. He decides, he says, yes, I will take you through the ways. The boys, Maureen gives everybody a choice. She says, you do not have to come. This is what I think we should do. This is what the wheel is pointing us to or the pattern is pointing us to, but you don't have to come. The boys all say yes, and the girls, Egwene and Nynaeve, also say yes. Worth mentioning also, they're still having dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Again, still a thing. So they do all their planning, they go to bed, and they actually have a dream that night. And there's 3 figurines sitting on a table, one for each of them. One has a sword, one has a wolf, and one has a dagger. And
We can
Matt,
we can figure out whose figurine is whose.
yes, Matt picked up his figurine, and Balzaman said, "So that's you," and the figurine became him with his face, his features, his clothes. And he made a comment, I think, to Rand, or yeah, to Rand, about how when he held it, it felt like he was holding himself, which is really
It really is.
Lane comes in and wake him up, or Moraine comes in and wakes them up, something, I don't know, and they're like, "We've all been asleep for like 20 minutes." And Moraine's like, "No, it's been 4 hours. Get your asses up." And they just kind of look at her like, "Well, we don't know about this." And she's like, "You guys had dreams again, didn't you?" And they're like, "Yep." And Rand got stabbed or got a splinter or something. He just holds up his hand like, "Yep, hi." She heals him. They sneak out of the Queen's Blessing through a back door, get their horses, sneak through Camelin as much as you can at daybreak, and
In a city that's packed to bursting.
bursting at the seams, yeah. Um, find the Waygate in the basement of a shop of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Go through the Waygate, and they're in the waves.
And it's interesting how they open up the Waygate, because when they get to it, it is basically just looks like a wall that is absolutely covered and adorned in leaves.
Yep.
And there's one leaf missing, and they have to kind of shuffle around and find this one leaf that fits inside to actually open up the Waygate. In the shape of a made in the image of a leaf of a Vindasora.
Yeah, which I think is actually really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So Moraine pulls the leaf out, puts it back in a different spot. It opens. They go through. It is very creepy. Once you're on the other side, the people on the real world side are moving slow, sort of deliberately. And Loyal explains that it's because of the time difference. So it's literally a time dilation field as well.
Yep, time moves faster in the ways, which is why they're able to get from one place to another much more quickly than you can by traveling in real world time.
Does it move faster?
Or it moves
Slower.
you are faster in the ways. So yes, well, yeah.
Yeah, because one day in the ways is like 10 days or months potentially
Yeah.
in the real world. So time moves slower.
Right.
Um, yeah, they travel through the ways. Loyal takes
It's
them.
extremely dark.
Dark, very very dark. At one point, Rand makes a comment that it's almost boring because it's nothing happens. You just walk in the dark.
There's nothing they have to there's pathways, they have to be careful of their footing and everything so they don't fall off the side into
Nothing.
nothingness, like just literal nothingness.
Yep. They do at one point come to a bridge that has collapsed. So they, in the ways you travel over bridges to islands, and you go from island to island over these bridges and ramps and stuff. It's hard to explain.
It is. It's almost like a parallel dimension, and it's just black,
Yep.
and you yeah, it's these bridge or these islands aren't really islands, they're more just
Floating
floating
things.
platforms
Yeah.
essentially. with bridges and ramps that lead to them, but they're called islands because they're not connected to anything. They're except for these bridges and these ramps. They're essentially
Yep.
just floating through nothing or
Yep.
floating in nothing.
The guiding stones, Loyal does read them. There's one on every island,
Hmm.
as well as like smaller ones at certain points along paths.
Some of them are so
Old.
worn and old that they're unreadable, and some
Hmm.
of them, even for someone who's versed in the language, it takes them a significant amount of time to decipher what directions it's telling them, because it tells you, which way to go to get to which major
Yep.
city or which steading or whatever. So he's
Hmm.
obviously not looking for Faldara. He's looking for a steading near Faldara, because that is where the Waygate would be.
Yep. Um, I think they spend.
And we should
Uh,
say that the reason that there was a Waygate in Caemlyn is because the inner city of Caemlyn was built on an ancient ogre grove, which is why there was
yes.
a Waygate there. Like
The
it.
Ogier built the
Mhm.
inner city of Caemlyn.
Mhm.
Anytime Ogier builders built a city, they built a grove to help reduce the effects of the longing, which is what they feel when they're not in a steading for
Mhm.
too long. And the city has now been built over the grove, the new
Mhm.
city. So it ended up, the Waygate, which was in the grove, ended up in a basement.
Basement of somebody's shop.
Yep. Um, yeah. So they're in the ways not for very long,
Mhm.
day or two, probably in ways time, not in real time, in
Right.
ways time. Um,
In real time, that'd been
well,
like 2 hours.
it is still real time because it'll only be a day or two that passed in the real world. It's just that the traveling doesn't take as long, right? Yeah. uh, they when they start getting close to the end of their waves journey, which has so far been pretty boring, to be honest. They I think Rand is the first one to hear it. Start to hear a wind type
Mhm.
sound.
He hears
Um,
something howling.
yes. And Loyal has told them already there's no wind, there's no weather, there's nothing in the ways. It's just empty, right?
Mhm.
It used to be beautiful. He does tell them that there used to be a sky, there used to be grass, there used to
Mhm.
be trees. But still
But
there's no environmental
the taint has corrupted
phenomenon.
everything into what it
Yes.
is now.
But even before it was corrupted, there was no wind, no rain, there's no weather of any kind. Um, so Rand hears the wind and he asks Loyal and the group, presumably, about it. And Loyal kind of turns pale and looks like he's gonna die, probably, and announces to the group that Rand has heard Machin Shin, which is the Black Wind.
The
It's
Black
a
Wind.
Old Tongue word, and that it eats souls and that it's found them. Um, there's only two bridges left, so they run for it. When they find it, the way out, the door out, Moraine sees the leaf, opens it. Everybody runs out. Oh, never mind. She doesn't find the leaf. Wait. I don't know. It says that the leaf isn't there, but then they leave the ways, so I don't know how that's possible. I didn't quite make it reading that far. Anyway, they escape. There's no way to close the gate though. Marine does use the one power in the ways, which is typically just a bad idea, to fight off Majin Shin while everybody escapes. She comes out. Majin Shin cannot leave the ways, so it is trapped. And they decide to go on to Feldara to let Lord Algomar, the Lord of Feldara, know so that they can have it closed. Maybe it was just open.
Maybe. Hmm. So I'm trying to look up here.
They do find a Trolloc trap. Or they find the remains of a group of Trollocs who were presumably eaten by Machin Shin. Or there was a trap left by male Aes Sedai who built the ways to keep Shadow Spawn out. So Trollocs have been using the ways.
Mm-hmm.
Which
is
which explains some things that so far have been in question, if you
how
think about it.
yeah, how did the Trollocs get to the two rivers unnoticed? And as many Trollocs as there were, it wasn't like there was, 5 of them that snuck through all the way down there from the Blight to
No, there were hundreds of Trollocs.
yes, that made it
Um,
from the Blight to the two rivers completely
yes.
unnoticed by anybody.
And we know that the Two Rivers used to be a very, very large city, based on what we heard back when they were still in, and Moraine told the story of Manetheren.
Manetheren,
And then
yep.
it was mentioned again by Rand to Loyal, because when Rand told him about the Two Rivers, Loyal's like, I don't know what that is. And he's like, how about, do you know Manetheren? And
Yeah.
he's like, yes. So it stands to reason that Manetheren would have had
A Waygate.
a Waygate.
Because not all the Waygates are in current Ogier steadings. As we know, like the one in Caemlyn.
Was in a grove.
The shop of in Caemlyn
Right.
is not a freaking Ogier steading. It was an Ogier grove. So I mean, and there are others throughout the world that are in essentially dead steadings.
Mm-hmm.
Steadings that have long been abandoned
Right,
and
like the
moved
one
on
that
from.
Perrin and Egwene were in
Hmm.
when they got captured by the White
Right,
Cloaks. That was a
right.
steading.
Yeah, that was a
That was
steading.
no longer in use. So there would be a Waygate around there somewhere.
Hmm.
Yep.
Or there could have been anyway. I don't know if there was a Waygate in every steading, but there easily could have been.
There could have been, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, still stands to reason that Manetheren would have had a Waygate and a
Yep.
grove. Yeah. And that gets us to Feldar.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're gonna stop. And next week we'll talk about episodes 4 through 7.
Can't wait.
I'm excited.
Glad one of us is.
Hey, come on now.
Yeah, so we learn a little bit more about what other people see in Rand that nobody else has really seen. Like I said, we saw a little bit. Would have been in the second episode in Bear Lawn with Min, where she has some visions about Rand, and then obviously,
Well, for about everybody.
yeah, Aleda has a foretelling. Loyal shows a very keen interest in all of them. Really, this is exciting. I want to write a book about this. I have to go with you.
Yep. But actually, I mean, I guess we'll have to talk about this a little bit later because we haven't gotten to Min in the show yet. But we'll have to remember to talk about what Min saw when she met them in Four Kings versus
In Bear Lawn.
Baerlon, sorry. When she met them in Baerlon versus in the show when they meet her in Feldara and what her visions actually are.
Anyway, so we were discussing a certain visitor to the Royal Palace of Caemlyn. We started to discuss that, and I didn't want to get into it because we hadn't actually gotten to the Palace of Caemlyn and met the residents of the palace yet. Now that we have, knowing who all was present when Rand was questioned, he absolutely 100% would have been there.
That would have been really bad for Rand. if he had been there.
Yeah.
Do men have the same?
This would have been a really short series if he'd have been there.
Do men have the same sort of thingy that women have, where they can sense? They must, or do they have to be
Yeah.
tested? I don't remember.
I think men can sense other men.
I gotta look it up now.
I'm pretty sure men can sense women channeling.
No, other way around. Yes,
I think it's men can sense women.
correct. Women
Like it,
cannot sense men though, for some
correct.
reason.
Correct, but when a woman channels around a male
They get that
channeler,
tingly.
yeah, it like tingles, almost like shivers or whatever. Men would have to be able to see other men channel.
I don't know, because I'm thinking forward in the books a little bit,
They
and
would have to
when
be, because how else would you teach them? They would have to be able to see
well, I'm thinking
Louise.
about when Taim sends scouts out to go find men, they always mention testing them, but they never mention just like innately knowing like women do. Ah, no man can tell at sight if another man can channel unless the other man has seized sighting.
See,
Unlike women,
that's
men cannot immediately tell if another man is able to channel.
that's what I thought were talking about. Like, is if somebody were to channel or whatever, another male would.
No,
Okay,
no, I
I'm
meant
sorry.
like because women don't have to be actively channeling to be able to
I got you.
sense. Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Okay, yeah, we're
Because if
different wavelengths there. I got you now.
yeah, because if he was there and then Rand showed up, obviously he would have been like, "Whoa, dude, there's something about you that's gonna lead you in a dungeon like right now."
I don't know if he would have made it out of that room alive. I don't think he would ever survive to reach a dungeon. I think he would have died right there in the throne room.
Probably, probably. So we'll have to get to that when that particular character is introduced in book 2 and 3, maybe 4.
4? Yeah.
4? Is it that far?
It's past the blight. Or not the blight, I'm sorry, past the waste.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, and it would have to be.
It's
4,
4 or
yeah, because that's when
5.
we get Perrin back in the Two Rivers.
Yeah, it's 4 or 5. It's not 2 or 3.
Yeah. Well, he's not around for very long. Rand's like, "Oh, I know you. Bye," and just
he had he has that effect on a lot of people.
yeah. And it was kind of the first place the second place after Tyr.
3rd place after Cairhien.
Was Cairhien before Andor?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it goes Tear, Waste, Cairhien, Caemlyn. I believe. Chronologically is his
Right.
order of conquering.
Right. The Waste, the Aiel. Not that he conquers them, just Tyr. Because
Tomato,
Tyr has
tomato.
to happen. Cairhien, Andor.
Well, Tear happens
Illian.
before the Waste.
No, it's not.
Tear?
Is
Yes.
Tyr before the Waste?
Yes. Where do you think he meets the Aiel? In Tear.
Fine. Tyr, Waste, Cairhien, Andor, Illian,
Illian.
Eredamon.
Uh-huh.
At some point, he's on Common Head.
That's book 2.
I know that's book 2. But that's because of the Shanshan, not because of
Right.
yeah. Because Common Head is no man's land,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
But yeah, that's a ways down the road still.
That's a ways down the road. Yeah.
All right,
I
well
think we're done.
that will wrap us up for this week. We will not be discussing any chapters in the book next week. We will instead be discussing the
show
wonderful
and
masterpiece.
the differences in what we discussed today versus the show.
Yep, what Robert Jordan did right and what Amazon decided to fuck up is what we will be. It's like it would be like if somebody bought you like a brand new Mercedes Benz and you decided to rip off the Mercedes Benz like logo and then just slap it on a Ford Focus and try and tell somebody that that's a Mercedes. Like
Seems
it's
like I'll
not.
go there.
I saw that. I saw that.
I
I
don't
had
know
to
where it went.
before we started this. I had to go pull my cat out of the ceiling in the back. Like somehow she managed to climb into the ceiling, and I don't know
Hilarious.
how. But anyway, that will wrap us up for this week.
Yep.
So we will see you guys next week.